Hi, we are going to talk about buying projects as a way to organize a bigger project and how to define the procurement packages for such buying. We are familiar with this kind of a supply chain where the final customer's investment project is at the top, but it consists of several sub-projects by contractors that deliver their sub-projects to contribute to the value chain of this final customer's investment project. Well, if we compare this picture to a picture of a project organization of a power plant, for example, so we can see from this hierarchical organizational chart that at the very bottom of that chart there are suppliers and contractors. So external resources that we use for organizing the project. And because projects are very complex entities and they require a lot of different specializations, so how can we ever think that all the specialized people can be found in our own firm? Rather, we should find the specialized, purposeful contractors for doing the parts that need such capabilities for completion. So in a project and a project's organizational structure, there is the project manager, and at the top there might be the supervisor, steering committees, and so on, even joint steering committees with the customer. But then there is the core team that is there full time and carries the project through. But then, of course, in any project, there is a kind of a contracted team, which can be a contractor, a firm, or then contracted people that are borrowed for this project's execution. Now, I want to draw a kind of an organizational chart that consists of firms. So at the top, there might be the owner firm, the owner of the project, which is typically a user operator of the system. Then the owner might hire a contractor, and the contractor then is capable of integrating the works and specialization of several subcontractors. Alternatively, we can see a different kind of organizational chart created by contracts between organizations where the owner itself buys from several contractors and in this way the owner carries the responsibility to integrate the whole system. In this organizational chart to the left, the owner uses one contractor for the integration task. So I think that the integration and how much effort and what kind of capabilities the owner can put in making the project, so that is essential. Whether to buy this kind of a service or integration activity from external sources and also give a lot of responsibility to external parties, or to integrate these parties themselves. Now, this picture shows the project's work breakdown structure. And it also shows that the procurement packages are formed from work packages, specific work packages under this work breakdown structure. And this designing and defining work packages is rather important. So what we should think about when designing the work packages, what the customer, what the buyer should consider. First of all, interfaces. So when procuring some entity from a contractor, I think that the customer should very carefully think about not building artificial interfaces between certain contractors. So, for example, if the customer buys a boiler from a certain contractor, so it is not necessarily wise for the customer to buy the boiler maintenance structures from another contractor that has to be welded on the boiler. So that would cause a quite interesting interface between two contractors on the site when the other one brings there and installs the boiler and the other one comes to weld some additional structures to the boiler. The same aspect goes for example, thinking about whether you want really to procure the designing and engineering from the same company as you order from the same company the actual construction of the equipment that is designed or engineered. Normally, many companies want to separate these tasks so that the kind of engineering companies don't favor their own kind of a manufacturing or delivery organization by designing some kind of a suboptimal solution to the customer. But on the other hand, it might be very wise to have the same company to design and comprehend the whole complexity of the system that it's going to build. Also, when we are considering how big entities we are going to order from certain company, what is the size of the procurement package, we should consider carefully which contractors, even which contractors by name, are capable of delivering that, and which contractors are so big, for example, in the organizational structure and specializations, so that they really could deliver a complex entity with various technologies, for example. And if we, for example, design too challenging and do too big entity to be contracted, it might be that we cannot anymore enhance competition, that there are only one or few potential contractors that are capable of doing the thing. The risks are too big for other companies. Now, I think that when we just were discussing about the procurement packages, so actually we were discussing about the connection between the structure of the project's end product and the structure of the organization, for example, in terms of different specialized contractors or subcontractors. And now I want to use the wonderful structural presentation that I borrowed from J. Davidson Frame's presentation about the connections between the team structure and the structure of the end product of the project. And when I'm talking about teams, and I'm talking about kind of a specialized people in teams, like team members, you could listen this, my next structural presentation by considering the structure also about different companies participating in making a complex end product. So teams and team members might be equal to specific companies with specific specializations. So if we have to write a technical report, the technical report of 5 chapters, and this is the end product of our project. So we can construct the organization for making that end product to be isomorphic to that end product structure. So this means that there is team member A that writes chapter 1, team member B that writes chapter 2, team member C that writes chapter 3, and so on. So this is really straightforward and functional, and the integration of the end product so that it makes a very comprehensible and understandable technical report is on the project manager's responsibility. So the project manager is the real integrator in this structure. Then we also can structure the organization by having specific specialists to collaborate in different chapters. For example, there is specialist A that participates in writing several chapters, and specialist B who participates in writing partly the same chapters. So there is a natural collaboration and integration among these specialists or team members. But then, of course, there are interesting interfaces in this structure. And for example, if somehow the writing of chapter 1 fails, so who is going to be responsible? Specialist A or B, or they both, or some kind of a joint formation of their those two specialists. Then we have a team structure with kind of a egoless form, which means that team members A, B, and C are happily collaborating with writing the whole technical report. So some of them might write the basic text for the chapter, move it to another one who's makes polishing of the text and improves it, and so on. And someone might ask another team member to come to help with certain issues and so on. So a kind of a alliance type of a structure where the whole team feels like being responsible of the whole technical report and integrating it by their doing. So this is an interesting structure also, and the questions really are that how the wins and, for example, the defeats are distributed among the team, and can several separate team members or separate organizations act as one, and what kind of incentives, mutual bonuses to be shared, or some kind of penalties to be suffered is shared between the team members. Finally, we have the surgical team structure, which can be compared to a surgeon's work of operating a patient. So there is a chief writer, and the chief writer is responsible of the whole idea and whole writing of the whole technical report. And this chief writer is like a surgeon, and this organizational form takes the integration problem head on. So there is one individual who concentrates on the whole. But then there are a lot of assistive personnel. So, for example, specialist A and B who complement the content of the technical report by bringing to chief writer some information that he needs, some assistive technical content. And then there is a special assistant who can partly support and complement the surgeons or the chief writer's work of writing the chapters. He could also be the deputy chief writer if the chief writer gets sick or cannot perform for a while or something. And then you can see that in this organizational structure, there is the administrative buffer, which means that there is a project administrator who takes care of all technical and administrative things, scheduling, paying fees for certain people, and whatever it is needed. And the editor is also a kind of administrative editor. When the night comes and the chief writer leaves his daily work there, so the editor can complement and polish it for the next day, so that the chief writer, when he comes again for a new day, so he can continue this very integrative effort of making the great technical report and the end product of the project. So I hope that these examples, very structural examples, illustrating the relationship between the end product of the project and the actual organization, specialized organization that participates in doing the end product. I hope that this gives you thoughts about how to structure your project organization in terms of how to buy different things from different contractors and different services from different team members accordingly, if we are talking only about a team and not about procuring from whole firms. So this was it. Thank you very much. Looking forward to meeting you in another session. Thanks.